even if you have a fairly secular religious upbringing like I did, there's definitely a void that comes from that. And this has often been discussed in IDW as the meaning crisis. Sam Harris's meditation app is an attempt to respond to that. Peterson's 12 Rules for Life is kind of an answer for that.
Peterson also
yeah.
pro-Christian or pro.
Well, so he has the whole like Christian atheism thing, and a lot of Peterson fans who are just a Christian apologists have just latched onto that because they're like, oh, well, it's okay for me to teach children unscientific things because it gives them a meaning framework.
You're triggered. You're triggered by Christians. Okay.
I mean, obviously I followed the new atheist movement for a reason. And so
trigger warning, snowflakes.
Yeah. No, and so what caused me to stop believing in God is there's just no reason to do it. And then when you sort of extrapolate from there, value systems that are based on something that are unsubstantiated are very difficult to justify. And if they cause people misery and suffering in real time, it's hard to just be quietly patient about it.
I think there's a lot more to religion than I think new atheists kind of only tell you the bad parts about religion and not the good parts. Like for instance,
so they pulled the religion out, but they didn't replace it with anything. So like when Indiana Jones switches the idol with that bag of sand, the atheists have a bag of sand.
It's not that easy to replace it with things because, okay, here's the thing. Here's the problem with that. Religion has been around for thousands of years. In fact, every single society in the world, besides, you could argue, this present society, had a religion. And this present society just has like feminism and then all lives matter and whatever. That's their new religion, which is fucking stupid. It's a dumb religion. But like, you can't just replace you can't just take Sam Harris's meditation app and replace it with religion because most people won't do it. And most people, it's like politics, all right? Most people don't have the time to look into everything that Congress and the Senate does and what the president's role are and stuff like that. Some people do. That's great for them. But most people just need something kind of in the background that tells them what to do, that gives them a structure. And then maybe they are intelligent enough and interested enough to like leave that structure and go figure out their own stuff. But I don't know if you can just, here's an example, right? My partner, Elliot, is Jewish. And his parents went away for a little while. And so we do every Friday night, we do Shabbat dinner. And so with Shabbat dinner, it's very specific things that you do. You break bread, you drink wine, you say prayer. And we went to his sister's house and we made sushi. And then we didn't do the rituals for Shabbat dinner. And then he said to me after that, oh, it was kind of a modern Shabbat dinner. We didn't do all the rituals. And I was like, yeah, sure. But like, if we're let's extrapolate to like 10 years in the future, right? Like pretend his parents aren't around and we just decide to go to his sister's house every dinner and it's not religious. Well, what happens when her kids have kids? Like, they're probably not going to do this ritual. They're probably not just going to go see their family every dinner time. And it's going to slowly fade away. But the fact that it's a religious element that God tells you to do it ends up meaning that you are obligated to go and see your family or your friends or whatever, just hang out with your community every Friday night, which ends up being so enriching for you. Like, people need to, it's fantastic to see your community every week and spend a lot of time with them. So I don't know, really, it's hard to replace religion. It's not that simple.
Right. And then this is why I find Stoic philosophy useful, because at least it gave some kind of new framework for me that didn't require me to come up with excuses to justify religious dogma. You know, the meaning crisis being what it is, it doesn't make the problems of religion that triggered new atheism go away. Like, those still are around. So it's like the rigid tyranny that religion has is still a problem there. And, you know, you have to be able to justify that if you're going to have a religious system. And this weird fourth dimensional Christian atheist argument by Jordan Peterson for a non-Christian atheist, but like an evangelical to use, I don't think is something I can get behind. But there are potentially other just more secular meaning systems that can be explored. I think Stoicism provides an opportunity for that. I think Sam Harris is trying to do a similar thing with his meditation app, and there are potentially other ways it can be done. But, you know, kind of like if you want like an example of a framework and a meaning system that can go wrong, but we're not talking about a religion. It's just imagine what it would feel like to be the most hardworking and most productive person in the commune, right? Just think how much life is going to suck for you, how much that's just going to feel like a needlessly cruel existence. Because not only will you be doing more work, but people will resent you for it. People will assume you're more successful because you're like cheating, or you're the bourgeoisie, and they'll turn on you, and then the whole commune ends up being worse for it. And then just substitute that for, imagine being the gay kid, in the evangelical Christian congregation, right? There's going to be a lot of just difficulty and cruelty you face for that, for no reason other than people feel like they have to do it. And so it's reasons like that I don't think going back 20 years to religiosity is the answer. The meaning crisis, being recognized for what it is. I think it is a lazy answer to say, oh, we have to go back to religion, just because some people didn't really find a reply. Well, some people do argue that. That's what I'm saying. Some people do argue that.
I think we should adopt new religion. I think we should see we should allow Christianity, for instance. I'm, into Judaism. I'll probably convert at some point soon, but like, I'll take Christianity because Christianity is kind of the main thing in the West, right? I think we should probably take Christianity, but right now, okay, a huge problem right now is like, you have a 14-year-old who says, how do I know God is real? And then people are asking this, they're talking to this 14-year-old from this, like, how do you know God is real perspective? When actually what the 14-year-old is actually what's actually happening is they need to see it from a 3D perspective. So like, there's this 2D perspective in the religion of like, you live by the rules, you do everything you're supposed to do because God told you to do it. And then there's another layer here of like, why do we do these things? Maybe these things are important. For instance, like not having sex before marriage. That's actually probably a great thing to do because then you don't have kids out of wedlock, and single parent families are known to do far worse than, dual parent households and stuff like that. So like, just because in the past we had this rule of like, God told you to do it, but now maybe we can like, I think probably people can adopt Christianity in a way that allows them to also see it from like a 3D point of view where they can understand why everything is so important. I don't know.
I think it's worth noting that, even a rigid system provides an order and stability that is superior in many ways to the state of nature, where it's just the wilderness and chaos and no law and order. It's certainly preferable to that, but that's not really at stake for us anymore. We're not at risk of going back to that at the current stage of human development. And so then that's when you have to ask, well, why do we have all these like really old rigid rules? And that's the
have gone back to single parent families.
Yeah, so, well, with single parent families, it's true. And so I think people,
you can brush that off lightly, but that's actually like people coming from single parent families are almost always far more likely to have, just statistically, they're far more likely to go to jail.
And so then that needs to be the argument. It shouldn't be, wait until marriage to have sex because then you'll be a dirty whore and you'll burn in hell.
Yeah, okay, we don't need that, yeah.
Yeah, that doesn't happen, right? But you might have a child who has an estranged father, and then they have depression issues, and then they swallow a bunch of pills and they die when they're 17, and then that was the consequence of a 5-minute mistake. That's a real thing that happens to folks. I'm sure more than once, and other similar tragedies. Me personally, it's like if I were actively on the dating scene, I certainly wouldn't want to date the single woman who happens to have a child, because it's like, I don't want to have to worry about his father one day knocking at my door at 2 a.m. Fuck that. Life is difficult and chaotic enough, right? And so that's just another reason there why it's just better to wait to have sex with people that you at least trust enough that if you have an accidental pregnancy that you're not going to terminate. That everything's fine. And if you don't trust a person enough to do that, don't have sex with them.
The thing is though, that's all well and good for people who are intelligent and introspective enough to make those decisions. and also, you know, even intelligent people make mistakes or whatever, but like, that's not most of the population. Most of the population needs someone. I think, unfortunately, like, where's the replacement? You said like we shouldn't call people dirty whores, and I don't want that. I don't want people to feel ashamed of expressing their own needs or whatever. But like, where's the replacement for that? Because if you tell the average person, you know, who works at a laundromat, like, or the average high schooler, don't have sex because no reason, or, you know, don't have sex until you're in love because you don't, because like it's not a good idea to have a baby out of wedlock, they don't like comprehend that very well. When you used to tell people you're a dirty whore and you're going to hell, it worked. Like, I mean, it didn't work all the time. People had sex before marriage all the time. They just didn't tell everyone. But like,
one thing that's interesting is that like millennials and to a greater extent Generation Z, they have sex at a much lower rate than they're much less sexually active.
Watch porn, I guess.
Yeah.
And they have low testosterone. Everyone has low testosterone nowadays.
Yeah, but it's like males and females are having less sex.
Women who have high estrogen are actually end up being more masculine. And that's probably because I think there's probably a huge reason here. Like all the soy we eat, soy is in everything. And like the plastics that we eat, it's probably a huge contributing factor to how fucked up people are. Anyway, sorry, go on.
Yeah, so it is tough because you can't tell people you're a whore, you're going to hell, if only because that's essentially not true. We can't really know if it's not true, but like we can't substantiate it. But like at the same time, there has to be some kind of deterrence from stupidly creating a whole other person that you can't take care of in a chaotic, unstable family environment. So there definitely should be some kind of deterrence from that. And like, what is the good answer to that if you're not going to tell them to go to hell? And I don't think we've quite figured that out. Now, maybe part of the answer is me saying, oh, I won't date somebody who is a single mom because, again, I don't want to worry about their father knocking on my door at 2 a.m. One exception maybe being like if she's a single mom because the father died due to unusual circumstances, but that's not most single mothers. So if more men are clear, like, oh yeah, I won't date a single mom, that's a deterrence because
well, I mean,
it's one thing if there's some kind of healthy stigma to it to discourage it, there's that. I mean, we could be somewhat harsher about it and say we could be more likely to have the state take children away from parents who clearly can't take care of them. That's much more likely to occur in single parent households. Of course, that's going to be very controversial even for people who don't have children out of wedlock.
And it's not actually better for the kids, even in really shitty situations. Like, I mean, in the worst of the worst, it's better, but most of the time it's better to have the kids with the parents.
Yeah. And so what's the solution there? Do we cut off welfare for
no, that's awful.
Like, there's already a malnourishment problem. So maybe sometimes the answer is life sucks.
I'm just saying that religion has left a hole in this situation that we haven't really filled yet. And we can say religion's bad and all that, but like it actually was a pretty neat solution that they came up with 5,000 years ago when they believed that the thunder was God angry at them or whatever. I don't know. I think religion has quite a few things like that we don't have.
Having said that, on the whole, it's not just sexual activity that's on the decline in our increasingly secular and irreligious society, but violent crime rates are much lower. So even with increases in single motherhood and men growing up without fathers, and those men being more likely to engage in violent crime because they don't have a good male role model, the overall trend for society is still one in which there's a decline in violent crime.
Just because there's a decline in violent crime doesn't mean like those boys are still growing up, and also the girls are just becoming strippers, and the guys are being useless video gamers, I assume. I mean, not all of them. Some of them are excellent people who do wonderful things.
I'm just saying it would be really concerning if secularism and irreligiosity had like a wholesale increase in violent crime associated with it, on top of just increased likelihood of
testosterone has dropped. Testosterone has dropped over 50% since the 70s as well. I mean, I think that maybe it's the lack of exercise or whatever, but I don't think that can also be attributed just to religiousness.
So the solution is just to feed people more cornstarch.